All right, hey guys, this is Hook'em Horn 7, and I'm here with Husker Fan 26. Say hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
We figured we haven't had a podcast or anything of that nature for a while, so we kind of thought we'd take a shot at it. We're gonna cover both national championships here in Wilkinson, and then we're gonna briefly touch on all the Level 5 games, kind of maybe provide our quick take on those games, as well as maybe projected scores. I guess let's just dive right in, and we'll start with D1AA. We have number one Northern Iowa taking 17 and one, taking on number three Texas Southern, who comes in 18 and 0. Coach Nitros against Jay Hunters, and Husker fan 26. Who's kind of some offensive guys that you think kind of stand out for both these teams?
Off the bat, everybody knows if you got a solid quarterback, the probability of you winning the game goes up a touch. And looking at the guest rankings, Nitros and Texas Southern, they have the number one quarterback in the land. And best of that, you would want to put money on Texas Southern, and also Nitros knows how to get the job done when he comes up against Jay Hunters. But then the quarterback has to throw the ball or hand off the ball to someone. Then when it gets to that, then I feel like the momentum swings all the way back to Northern Iowa. If you look at the number 33 quarterback, he's not the best, but he's serviceable. Two top 10 running backs, all the wide receivers are in the top 100, all the tight ends top 100. Line, can you say solid? Five top 100 guys. So he can mix and match those guys to make sure that they are studs within some of the scrubs on the field at all times. Then you go on the other side of the ball, four top 100 defensive linemen for Northern Iowa, five top 100 linebackers, five top 100 DBs. I mean, can you say stacked? There's a reason Northern Iowa is the number one guest roster. But as you gotta be able to know how to use these guys.
Right. Well, and so what I think is intriguing is it looks like Northern Iowa has plenty of depth on the defensive side of the ball, and they're taking on that Texas Southern offense, who averages over 77 points per game coming into this, which is first in the country, and they are stacked on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they have two. When you have two top 30 quarterbacks, even if one is young, I mean, he's still going to be a competent enough backup. The running back, they've got four in the top 100, two top 25 wide receivers. I mean, that team on the offensive side of the ball is just stacked. So I think that's going to provide a good matchup as Texas Southern's offense against Northern Iowa's defense.
That's going to be a great measure. But then with the offense that Nitros run, he'll just play keep away. So then the Northern Iowa offense never gets a chance to get on the field, and then the defense is tired out, and everybody knows Nitros likes to put up points. So yeah, again, you put money on Nitros just based off that. But for me, I feel like it's kind of like a coin toss. Like Tiger and Phil yesterday, they had to go 22 rounds to decide who
Right.
wins. The 9 million. But I
And
I I I always like Nitros.
well, Northern Iowa's got the number two scoring defense in the country, just averaging over 10 points against per game, and they average over three turnovers per game, which is pretty good. Which is going to be tough to get that against Nitros's offense. Maybe looking back on some of the previous games, who do you notice that stood out for either team, or who was consistent for either team?
For me, it always comes back to quarterback play. What is the quarterback been able to do all year long, and do you think he'll be able to do it? If you look at Michael Travis, he's a senior. He's a smart kid, formation IQ, 83 for a senior. It's a bit on the low side, but then, he knows how to run through his reads. He knows how to put up the numbers. As a senior, though, he has thrown a pick this year, which kind of worries me for a senior quarterback. But then if you look at his completion rate, almost
Yep.
65%. So he knows how to get the ball to his guys. The wide receiver, Willie Thornton, 211 receptions for over 3,000 yards. And then if the passing game is not working, he just goes, yo, Lee, I need you to, run the rock for me real quick. 450 rushes for over 2,500 yards. I
Yep.
mean, come on.
Yep. Michael
He gets
Travis
it
has
done.
thrown 92 touchdowns to that one interception. That's five more touchdowns than the guy who's second place. He's also got 8,000, a little over 8,500 yards, which is 300 more than the guy in second place. And then there's other two guys you highlighted. Willie Thornton, he's got 41 touchdowns on the year. That's second in the league. And then Lee Edwards, the running back, he's got over 2,700 yards. Average is over 6.1 or averages 6.1 yards on the ground and 47 touchdowns. I mean, everywhere you look at this team, that offense is just loaded. What do you think about UNI? Who you think can step up for them and maybe help keep this thing close?
They'll have to hand off the ball to Ryan Garcia. He'll have to put the team on his back and carry them.
I re-
He
Go ahead. Sorry.
317 rushes for 1,800 yards. That's not good enough. He'll have to, go above and beyond his season average thus far, I feel like, just to try and, slow down and keep the Texas Southern offense off the field. Because I think it might come down to whoever has the ball last is most likely going to win the game.
Right. Yeah, I think that too, and I think how we were talking about how potent Texas Southern's offense has. I think UNI kind of has a decent counterpunch to that. You highlighted Ryan Garcia. The dude's got 20 rushing touchdowns on the season. He averages 5.8 yards per carry. He's got 17 receiving touchdowns, averages 13.8 yards per carry. This guy is very balanced. He's rushed for 1,800 yards and he's received for 2,200 yards. You don't usually see a lot of dual threat guys anymore. It seems like a lot of coaches kind of try to have one or the other. So he's kind of your do-it-all back. And then the other running back that I kind of like out of UNI, Michael Eubanks, he's
Oh,
averaging
yeah.
6.8 yards per carry, which is fourth in the country. So they're going to need that to kind of help keep that Texas Southern offense off the field a little bit. I think both sides in a sense got to play keep away because I think the other offense can score. But the problem is I don't know that these defenses are going to be able to necessarily maybe keep up with these high-powered offenses enough to slow them down to maybe they were where they want to go. So I think running the ball might be a little bit more key in this. If that ends up being a strategy, who knows? It might turn into an old school Big 12 game, and we might just get a bunch of throws.
Hey, I will be happy with that because, as I said last night in Slack, the Big 12 does not play defense. We do not know what defense is. We are allergic to defense in the Big 12. But even with all that, I still think the Northern Iowa defense is solid enough with Martinez, who's on the line. He's a junior with 20 sacks on the season. We have Foley, three forced fumbles. He's one of the linebackers. Then you have Richter, one of the D linemen with two safeties. So that front seven, they know how to get the job done and put pressure on the line and the quarterback and try and get some points in the ball back for their offense. So I think with the amount of talent they have on the defense, they might be able to somewhat keep up or at least slow down the Texas Southern offense, slow them down enough to give their squad a chance in this game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. It's going to be a tough one to call. Speaking a little bit of strategy, what do you think the offensive strategy should be for both teams? You think they should change it up or kind of stick with what they've been doing?
Hey, go with what brung you. If you are running the ball, you're going to be running the ball. If you're passing, you have to pass. And both teams were passing the ball like their lives depended on it. So, off that, I say throw the ball, hit your guys. If you're not an Iowa, Ryan Garcia, that's your main man. I would probably just use him in the pass game and then have somebody else carry the ball. That way he's always fresh on those, third and long, third and medium, where you're most likely going to be passing the ball. For Texas Southern, Willie, make sure that he's fresh at all times. If you're running the ball, get Willie off the field. Make sure that he's fresh. But again, when you get into those third and medium, third and long situations, of which I don't really expect the teams to be, in third and long situations. Probably they'll be, third and medium type situations because I feel like, first down, everybody's going to try to go for the home run. Second down, run the ball, get a few yards, then, make it, third and manageable, and then try and get your stat guys back on the field.
Yeah, I think that's what they're gonna do. I am kind of a firm believer as well. Sticking with what you know is working. Seems like if you kind of switch it up, get it too crazy, especially this late in the game, might end up biting you in the butt. So,
Oh yeah.
defensively, you think anybody needs to change up what they're doing? Do you think they need to play conservative, kind of sit back, watch those passes, or what do you think? Because Texas Southern coming into this game has 36 interceptions. That's tied for second in the country, and 22 forced fumbles, which is tied second in the country. So they know how to get the ball. UNI comes in tied fifth fewest in giving up fumbles, but they do have those couple picks on the year. So as far as the defense goes, do you think they need to continue to try to get those turnovers, or do you think they need to kind of sit back and just play bend but don't break kind of style?
I think until you get to like the red zone, try and put first down, try and put some pressure, blitz, send that other, linebacker who is not the best in the rotation, send him down. Or if he is in coverage, send him down or put him on the line. Try and get pressure and put the quarterbacks under pressure because one is a senior, but we know he can throw a pick. He has thrown one. The other one is a junior. Yeah, and he has, 60 odd percent completion, 63% and two picks. So both quarterbacks, we know they can throw picks. So early downs, put some pressure on them, get some guys on the line and then, maybe blitz a few. And then when you get down to, second and long, third and long, get everybody back in coverage and then try and, get some picks or some deflections or just something. I would say first half, try and put as much pressure as you can on the quarterback to see if that works. If it doesn't work, then in second half, get everybody back in coverage. But then by that time, the game might be over. So
Yeah, that's you run that risk. I mean, it's kind of one of those high risk, high reward things, right? Like it could pay off because you could be getting those turnovers that you need, or you could be getting those key stops on long situations if you get those. But you also run the risk because both these offenses seem to be pretty potent. You get beat over the top by, I mean, you name it on either side of the ball. They got playmakers all over this thing. So I I I I, I don't know. I think playing bend but don't break is too conservative, but I also hesitate too much on going too aggressive. So maybe you're right. Maybe throw in a little bit here and there just to kind of see what works and what doesn't. But I definitely think you want to try to go in and at least keep this thing close at half.
oh yeah, you want to be at least within a score or two at halftime. That way you know what has been working and what you need to adjust, what areas you need to adjust. I wouldn't go full blitz is coming, every play you're sending somebody. I wouldn't go that far. I would 60-40, 60% blitz, 40% everybody back in coverage type situation. And then every now and again you have an extra guy on the line, just make things uncomfortable for the quarterbacks.
Right, right. Um, do you see any weaknesses to either team, or are they pretty much well rounded, pretty stacked?
It's hard to say Texas Southern has any weaknesses when the record is 18-0, and same thing with Northern Iowa, 17-1. I mean, you can't really say that there's a weakness in the roster, but the weakness for me that I can say are on defense for Texas Southern. They don't have as many studs as Northern Iowa, and that's about it. Northern Iowa has more studs, but other than that, I feel like the rosters they are fairly equally matched, and I think it will be a really really tight one. And if you look at like for Northern Iowa, the game against Youngstown State, the one that they lost, Youngstown ran 52 times for 240, but then they also threw it 34 times and had 21 completions, which is not too bad. So you're like, should running it all the time worked for Youngstown, but then
Well, and I
just
can vouch for that Youngstown deep rushing attack. I run nickel, but I mean his Notre Dame box rushing attack tore me apart. So that's definitely not something easy to stop.
so then that tells me like, yo, maybe what you want to do is try and target those linebackers because he only has two top 100 and two top 100 DBs. So the secondary you can have a field day if you play it right. Have a tight end take the top off, occupy the safeties, then he can try and throw underneath and work the middle of the field. have one of the running backs stay short, bring down the linebackers, safeties have to go. Then you target your wide receivers who will only be matched up one on one with the corners somewhat. That could be a strategy to go with, but at the same time, the tight end takes the top off and you only have two safeties or two top 100 DBs, then they are playing corners. Your safeties might be exposed by that tight end. And Northern Iowa has all of them, they're in the top 100. So you're like, okay, that's a major problem already for Texas Southern. Do you put your best DBs, your top 100 DBs at safety, both of them, or do you split them? One on safety, one is a corner. It becomes a
Right.
headache. I would
Yeah,
feel.
you might have to do some shifting a little bit on that side of the ball.
Oh yeah, and it also might come down to fatigue. Do you want your sub level to be 95, 85? How do you determine that to make sure that you have your best guys on the field at all times?
Right.
That's going to be a headache for these coaches.
Yeah, I think definitely keeping those starters on there. But I mean, they have some depth, but I mean that depth is no match for starters if they get matched up on the other side. So I'm definitely with you. Who you picking in that game?
As I said earlier, I think the safe money is on Nitros because I've seen him do this time and time again. He leaves Texas Southern a while ago, goes to Arkansas, Pine Bluff or something, builds them up, makes a deep run, comes back to Texas Southern, and he picks up like he never left. So let me say, 51% of me says Nitros, and it's only 51%.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you here. Texas Southern overall head-to-head against Northern Iowa is 10-8, so pretty even there. Nitros is 1-0 against Jay Hunters, so I mean, he's undefeated, but it's only one game. I kind of lean in that way too. My final score I'm calling on this one is Texas Southern 35-34 for UNI. Really close. I really think it's going to come down to a coin flip, flop, whatever. So we'll see on that one. Let's move to D1 now, and talk about these level 5 bowls before we dive into that national championship. And let's start off with the Fiesta Bowl here. We have number 6 Michigan taking on surprise ACC, I believe. Yeah, they had to if they're in there, right? Surprise ACC champion UNC, with first-year head coach Allen. What are you looking at in that one, or who you got in that one?
Oh, I'm going with Seabrick all day. I have seen him. I face him every season in over in Heisman. He's at LSU. I have Alabama, and I that's one of those games when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's going to be a loss. I just wonder how many points he's going to put up on me. So, and I know what he's going to do almost every time we play. He's going to throw the ball because that's pretty much his offense, and he knows how to do it and there's no way to stop it. And with UNC, they have a ton of Sims on the roster, but the coaches managed to, play around them and, get the best out of them. But I don't think it will be enough to go up against the Wolverines. I think these Wolverines will be better than the Wolverines I just watched earlier on.
Yeah, that was a bit of a surprise. I kind of thought, maybe I posted in Slack that I thought Ohio State would win. I did not expect them to hang 62 on Michigan though. Anyway, back to what if sports. My keys to this one are going to be obviously like you said, the Michigan State passing game against the weaker North Carolina passing defense. Michigan averages over 600 passing yards per game, and UNC is giving up nearly 300. And then flip flop for that. I think UNC's heavy run game, which averages over 250 yards per game against Michigan's defense, which is giving up 120 per game, could be kind of key, but I kind of think you're right. I think UNC doesn't have the talent. Also, Allen, not necessarily a bad coach. Obviously, what he did this year I think is pretty fantastic. But, previously in Wilkinson, we haven't seen a whole lot from him. I kind of got this one. I got this one going Michigan 38-26. Next game, number 3 USC taking on Florida State. What are your thoughts on that one?
I have faced Easy and his Trojans, and I have managed to take a conference title off them. I kind of felt bad because I respect what those guys do year in, year out. They get the job down, they win games, and going into any season, you expect them to actually, make it all the way to the national title game. So when I managed to steal a conference title of them, I kind of felt bad because I think they were in line to make it to the national title game, and I just showed up and said, "Nah, I think this season you guys need to, let someone else go." So based off that, I have to go with the Trojans. Nothing against the Seminoles, but I think the Trojans are just a bit, further ahead in their program in comparison to Florida State.
Yeah.
Though Easy always gives you a chance in any game in the first half, then adjustments are made at halftime, and then it's over.
Yeah, that's
Third
fair.
quarter, the game will be over by the third quarter.
We'll see. We'll see. I think this one actually might be kind of close. USC, like kind of you said, they do always seem to be in that national hunt, national title contention here in Wilkinson. Easy. They're very, very consistent over there. I think this will be interesting with the USC heavy passing attack, averaging over 500 yards per game, or nearly 500 yards per game. How can the balanced attack from Florida State that averages over 240 yards per game, both rushing and passing? Can that balance be enough to kind of slow down USC, keep things close late into the game, and maybe then they get some lucky breaks, maybe somehow get a fumble or something that kind of goes their way? I think, and Easy's only 1-0 against JJL. This is only the second time they met, so these coaches aren't super familiar with each other. I also, though, am kind of leaning with you. I have USC winning this one 35-30. I do think it's going to be a little bit closer than maybe a lot of people think. Uh, USC, sometimes they've proven to be vulnerable, particularly to Cal teams for whatever reason. So I think maybe that Florida State and JJL, they can find something and maybe keep this thing close. Next, we got the Rose Bowl, a rematch, conference mates here. We got Penn State against Ohio State. What do you got there?
Usually, I would have said Penn State, hands down, easy. But after what
Mm-hmm.
happened earlier on in the season, I'm now like, maybe not so quick. Ohio State. I've always, in some of my posts, I've been on their case. Like, I expect more from a Buckeyes squad. Fertile recruiting ground. So you have the talent to go up against almost anyone. So I always expected them to be in the hunt, and in the last few seasons they have been, somewhat meeting my expectations. I think they've taken that next step to be in the top 10 consistently. So now I think it's time for them to, make a run for the national title. But with all of that said, this is still Penn State with Notonis, and we all know what he's capable of doing. And I think he is out seeking some revenge from his only loss earlier on in the last game of the season.
Right.
So I think I have to go with the Lions. I'm sorry, Buckeyes.
That's all right.
I
They
have to
they
go with
got
the
they got that
Lions.
victory today in real life, right?
Yeah, they should be good.
Yeah. So my thoughts on this one. Penn State looks like they kind of had an interesting season. I mean, you win any season where you beat Seabreak and Blitz is coming in a season, you're like, oh, you're doing right, doing really
Mm,
great, right? But then you look at his
yep.
last two games. He barely beat Kinsey, who's a great coach, but he barely beat him. And then, like you said, he got rocked there in the finale. So the key for me did Penn State learn from that balanced attack, and can they stop it? And the other side is Penn State was absolutely destroyed on offense. They didn't do anything. I think he had like 40 something percent completion here. I mean, it averages out to he was 29 of 64. I mean, that's pretty terrible if you're going to pass 64 times. So the other key for me is did Penn State learn from that, and should Ohio State maybe be expecting a curveball here? In the series, Nortonis has dominated Roxy. It's 15-6 on the series, so these coaches know each other pretty well. Being in the division, I imagine that they would. But on this one, I'm also with you. Initially, I was thinking Penn State by a lot. I saw that game there at the end. It's always tough to beat a team twice. So I'm kind of going with Penn State on this one, and I'm going 35-33.
Yeah,
And
that's a reasonable
I
score.
I like most of these level 5 games. I do think a lot of them will be pretty close, but we'll see. I'm also not as good at predicting D1 as I am predicting D1 AA, so we'll see on that. Next game up, it's you against Jason Freeman. What do you? I mean, you can provide as little as you want or as much as you want on this since it is your game. But what are your
Oh,
thoughts on this?
this one is going to be an easy one for me to dissect and analyze. Texas is going to put a whole lot of points and a whole lot of hurting on the Vols. That much I can guarantee you. That is money in the bank. But I will say this: Tennessee. I talked to the boys. They told me that they are ready. We think we have a good game plan going into this game, but I think we might be overmatched across the board because Texas, they have the number one roster in the country. We are top 25, but then nowhere close to trying to match Texas. And Jason Freeman, he consistently managed to beat USC with Cal when he was still out in the Pac-10, and I think I only managed to do it a couple of times. So that just goes to tell you his game planning abilities are out there with the best, and then on top of that, you give them some of the best recruits in the country over there at Texas. I think this one, I'll be happy if we are able to score a touchdown.
I think he'll do more than that. Looking at this game just from the number standpoint, it for me the keys to both teams is can the secondaries make the stop. I mean, Tennessee's passing game, you average nearly 500 passing yards per game. Texas is giving up over 200 yards through the air. The same can be said on the other side. He averages nearly 400 passing yards per game, and you're giving up almost 250. So it's can those secondaries make adjustments in the second half to keep this game close? I mean, J- Jason Freeman's had a fantastic season. He's gone through the Big 12. That's the toughest conference, pretty much by far, I would think, or at
Oh
least
yeah.
maybe arguably with the SEC right there. But I would still say that the Big 12 is the toughest conference. I mean, Daryl Jones did it. Daryl Jones pulled it off in overtime. He was able to put up over 500 yards against them and hold him to under 400, and that's only getting one turnover. So I mean, things can happen. I think both. I think you're kind of right. I think this is going to kind of turn into a shootout. This is going to be a Big 12 game here. Um, I keep my scores kind of more realistic than WIS tends to get them up there. But I have Texas winning. I do have them winning, but I only have them winning 38-37. I do think this will hang around, and kind of like we were talking about the D1 AA game, could come down to who gets the ball last, or who's able to maybe get one lucky turnover or one stop on defense to keep this thing close.
Oh, thank you for giving me, all those points, but I'll give it my best to put up that many points. But oof, I looked at that Texas team and I was scratching my head like, so should we even show up for this one or just throw in the towel?
Yeah, you can't throw in the towel. You got to play the game. That's why they play the game, or in this case, simulate. It's kind of the same thing, though, right? It's like real life.
Oh yeah. We're going to give it our best. We're going to give it a good shot. And at halftime, we're going to make, adjustments if need be and, go again. Hopefully, if at halftime I'm within a score, I'll be happy with that.
All right. Well, good luck to you in that one.
Thank you.
All right. In the game that everyone will have their eye on, we have number 1, Alabama, taking on number 2, Rutgers. Alabama comes in 14-0. SEC champs. Rutgers comes in 13-1. Big East champs. What is your take on this national championship game?
Okay, this one is going to be the first time these guys are playing, which is hard to believe considering how long these guys have been
Right?
in.
I was
Well,
surprised by that too.
but I've played Z twice this season, and both times I was unable to get a W off him. In the conference title game, at halftime, I think I might have been leading. And then in the second half, he was like, okay, you had your fun in the first half, but it's time for me to show up and show you how this is done. And boy, did he. So off that, and looking at the rosters, you're looking at Alabama. They allow only 14 points per game, 300 total yards. And then they are getting 62 points per game, over 600 total yards per game, and most of those yards are through the air. You know what's coming, but there's nothing or at least for me, there was nothing that I could do to stop them. We're talking about the number four guest roster, which is a mix of, AWAG recruits and Z32's guys, and he's throwing 75% of the time with a quarterback who is the number 14 QB, 86 formation IQ. He's only a junior, and through the entire season, he has never had a completion percentage below 50%. He has managed to throw a touchdown in every game. We are talking about four top 100 running backs, and they seem to have one guy for throw for targeting, one guy to carry the load. Kind of like what you talked about earlier. So you have Murillo. He's the guy who's going to be coming out of the backfield and catching the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Roland. He's going to be carrying the rock and pounding it like his life depends on it. But the other thing is they only have four wide receivers, and all four they are in the top 100. He has two tight ends, so you know the ball is going to be going to the running back some way somehow. He's going to get the ball to Murillo,
Right.
and knowing all of this going in, I was unable to stop him. I'm hoping Paul has a better luck with this. Looking at his, let's say his linebackers, he has three top 100 linebackers. He can try and bring down his DBs. He has two top 50 DBs. He can try and bring down the safeties to help with the running backs. But with only like that secondary and those linebackers, I think you might be torched in the middle with Murillo doing most of the work.
Mm-hmm.
Like he throws to the running to the wide receivers and the tight ends also. Just you spread the love, spread the ball around to make sure that everybody is
Probably
happy.
just when Murillo's out of the game, right?
Exactly, he needs a break, so he's like, okay, let me hit one of those wide receivers and let me hit one of those tight ends. And when he's throwing, it's big chunks as well. It's not like he's not nickeling and diming you, just like five here, three here, or four here. He's hitting eight plus on almost every pass play. And then just to keep your defense honest, he's going to hand the ball off and try and run it just to keep the defense honest. So that for me, I couldn't find a way to try and at least for one half, I was in there, I was in the game, but then in the second half, he made the adjustments and his offense just started, rolling like a well-oiled machine. But then on the other side, because I played Paul, is it a season or two ago in the national title game, and I had no answer for him because for him this is like the second appearance in the national title game in 3 seasons since he got to Rutgers. First season, he went all the way and won it. Last season, not so much, and then he's back at it again, and again with his roster, it's a mix of his own guys and guys that Z32 left behind. So he knows the quality of the talent that he left behind, and he will be facing those guys. I fully expect this one to be a shootout. It'll be first half. I think both of them will be somewhat conservative. I know both of them make fantastic adjustments at halftime. I managed to sneak by Paul in Leahy when him and I faced off, and going into the half, I had a lead, and I was like, okay, so second half, he's going to get the job done and take care of business. He won the second half, but I just managed to put up enough points to still maintain my lead. So I think first half it'll be within three points going into the half. Then second half they'll open up that offensive playbook a little bit and let the quarterbacks go a little bit crazy.
Yeah. I think you're right on with that. Both teams seem to be passing quite a bit, and really, honestly, kind of surprised me a little bit out of Rutgers. Guess ranked quarterback is number 33, but he's got 38 right behind him, as opposed to where generally you kind of seeing maybe a top 20, top 15 quarterback, and then backed up by somebody like the number 33 or 38. So his quarterback maybe not as top heavy. He's definitely got some skill players around him though. One thing I'm kind of seeing, overall from the roster and just, guess in general, I'm seeing that Rutgers maybe seems like a little bit top heavy. A lot of their starters are going to be, a little bit better, and then maybe not a whole lot of depth behind him. So Alabama maybe want to be trying to capitalize on that. But I do notice that both teams seem to have a little bit weaker secondaries, at least per rankings and guess. A lot of C's and not many B's, so that will be interesting to see how that plays out. I've played both these guys. I do feel like I've played Z a little bit more. I feel like no matter what, even if his DBs are supposed to be weaker, I still struggle to throw against him. Or linebackers are weak, and I'm supposed to be able to tear them up over the middle, and I was unable to do that. So he definitely has something on the defensive side that kind of helps hide those guys. But obviously, Paul going what he did, as good as he did, and going through a pretty tough strength of schedule, he's obviously got his defense figured out too. Statistically, it looks like Bama maybe a little bit has the edge. 62.2 points per game, that's sixth, and 14 points per game, that's fifth, as opposed to Rutgers, who's only scoring 56.5 points per game, that's 10th, and then giving up 16.6 points per game, that's 12th. So, I mean, they're both pretty close statistically. As far as looking at an offensive strategy, do you see anything that they should be changing, or is it kind of the same way you're approaching the D1AA championship, kind of stick to what you know and what's been working for you?
Oh, I say stick to what you know and what's been working. And in this game, I expect Z to throw way more than probably he has been doing all season. Because looking at the defense for Rutgers, we are looking at 3 top 100 linebackers, 2 top 50 DBs, 2 top 100 D linemen, and that's it. And then, as the saying goes, defense wins championships. So that right there for me means that there's room for Z to expose the Rutgers defense and try and put up a whole lot of points on them. Because if you look at his offense, he's got 2 top 100 offensive linemen who have given up 29 sacks. And, I mean, if he's going to give up, a few sacks in this game, maybe 3 or 4 in the first half, you'll probably keep a tight end into blocking this going into the second half. And that will probably buy his quarterback a bit more time so that he can chuck it down 15 yards, 16 yards down the field and, try and target those DBs or those linebackers.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about the sacks and the pressure. Both the teams average over 3 sacks per game. One thing that I kind of noticed, though, is Bama's getting a lot of those sacks from the defensive line. They got defensive lineman Lewis Curry. He's got 16 sacks, and then Michael Womack has 15 sacks. So he's able to just sit in his 3-4, I'm assuming he runs based on what I've seen from C32, and just leave the rest of those guys in coverage, where someone like maybe, Paul might have to bring some pressure from some spots a little bit here to try to at least get some incompletions. He's probably not going to get any picks. Gary Martin hasn't thrown any all year, but at least try to get some pressure to get some incompletions. So that should help Bama in that side of the ball too. I mean, if you're able to just sit back and tee off and let your D lineman get some pressure, that's a lot easier.
Yeah, because with that line, with the number of sacks you just mentioned, the guys behind those big fellas up front, they are picking the ball off. You have Lee Hughes, who's a corner. He's playing at corner. He's got 4 picks. Then you have Johnson. He's got 3. Then you go to the linebackers. You have Chapman. He has 3. Delaney. He has 3. So the defense, the guys behind the big fellas, they are itching to get their hands on the ball. So if Paul is just chucking it with his quarterback under pressure, he might be throwing the ball to the wrong guys in the wrong colors in this game. So he might probably try to go, run it a little bit just to keep Z's defense honest, and also, play a little bit of keep ball, because with those guys, you are going to probably give up sacks. You are going to be throwing picks if you're under pressure. He gives an extra tight end or running back in to block. That means you're taking an offense away, a weapon away from your offense. So that gives you a disadvantage going into your passing game.
Right.
That gives the defense an extra advantage. So I think for Rutgers, they might have to go a little bit, run heavier than they probably would want to.
Well, and they can do that. Running back Clifford Robbins has over 2,000 yards on the season. He averages 6.0 yards per carry, and he has 35 touchdowns. So if that is what they end up deciding to do, they do have the guy to help make that happen. As far as we kind of talked briefly about the defensive backs, and particularly Rutgers defense as a whole. But either side of the ball, do you see any other weaknesses that the other team might try to exploit?
I think for Z, I don't think he needs any advice from you on what to exploit because he has been exploiting every weakness in every team for so long now. But I think for him, he'll be checking the ball probably more than he has been all season long because that Rutgers defense for me it's a little bit weak. And then on the other side, Rutgers they might have to try and pound the ball a little bit more. On average, they're rushing 167 yards rushing per game. They might have to up that a little bit more, hopefully edge towards, 200,
200.
200
Yep.
plus to have a chance in this game. And they might need to try and hold on to the ball for maybe, 2/3 of the entire game to try and, play key ball and stay in the game somewhat
Well,
because that Alabama offense, they are rolling like Tua is the quarterback.
well, and I mean that's what the strategy is in real life, right? You face a heavy, quick strike offense that throws the ball a lot, or maybe just scores quick. You generally want to play keep away. You generally want to kind of run the ball, slow it down, nickel and dime them down the yard, but you also got to be efficient. So, I mean that's true of real life. So we'll see what he ends up deciding to do, but I agree that's kind of the cookie cutter plan for everybody. Um, who you got in this one?
I have to go with Z and the Tide because go SEC.
Oh, a little bit of bias. Huh? Well, I'm all Big East here, bro. So, uh,
And it's nothing against Paul and Rutgers. I like Paul. He plays great. Every now and again, I throw some questions to him. I'm like, hey man, I need some advice on here. What do you think is the best way of going about this? And he's always willing to share, little tidbits of information here and there.
yeah,
So, but then looking at the numbers and the rosters, like the safe money is on Alabama.
yep. I kind of agree with you. This head-to-head series overall is 9-4 in favor in Alabama. This coaching matchup really, to me, is even. I don't think either one is that much better than the other one. I think they're both fantastic coaches. Um, but I kind of am with you on this one. I think the slide edge and talent goes to Alabama. And so I'm picking them 33-28. I do think it'll still be a pretty close game. I think both offenses will be moving the ball all right. But we might see some turnover, might see a little bit of sloppy play. Just, but we'll see what goes on here. Any final thoughts before we hang this thing up here today?
When recruiting comes around, fellas, stay the heck out of Tennessee, stay the heck out of Georgia. That's just an extended version of Tennessee, and we'll be good.
Yeah, okay. You might as well throw in there Florida and North Carolina and Virginia. Might as well just stake claim to the great states. Just, why not?
Hey, I'm just saying, like it is it is the right thing to do, and also another thing, I look forward to Allen and CJ going at it over in North Carolina.
Yeah, well, that'll be an interesting turn to see where that goes. CJ, it sounds like he maybe have a couple more seasons stocked up. See if he kind of comes back and throws something at Allen, especially now that Allen has a little bit of ammo by winning the ACC, and if he adds to that a bowl win, that'll be that'll be interesting
Oh,
for sure.
he'll never shut up if he manages to get a ball win this year. And I think people, I know TD has been looking at new teams to pick up. Wake Forest is open. North Carolina State is
Oh, this
open.
guy. Yeah, hey, that's in your neck of the woods too. There.
Hey, I'm just saying those guys are open. TD, if you are trying to leave Colorado, those two will be great landing spots. Give it a think.
All right. Well, good luck to everybody playing tomorrow. Husker fan, thanks for hanging out and chatting with us and going over all these games. Good luck to everybody in the national championship and bowls, and congrats for making it there in the playoffs. And everybody, good luck.
Good luck, everybody, except for you, Jason Freeman. I hope your guys have food poisoning tonight and, they give us a chance tomorrow.
All right. Talk to you later, guys.